Hey everyone, this tutorial video is to kind of help you use text better in Fusion 360. There's really not a lot of good text support in Fusion 360, and I'll kind of demonstrate some of the issues that can come with trying to use text and how we can work around them in Fusion 360. So if you want to use custom fonts or you want to use certain types of spacing on lettering and things like that, there really isn't good native support in 360. So right here we have a 360 window open, and I'm just going to add in some text. So this is going to be our demo text. And so here you can see, okay, we have our regular just kind of English italicized or non-serif or serifed text, and so right now it's just an Arial. But if I want to do like a different font type, so I have a couple of custom fonts installed, and I'll show you places where to go get fonts here in a minute. And I've gone ahead and pre-installed some of those fonts, but there's a lot of different font types out there. So here's just an example of like all the different font types there are in the world. So Fusion 360 doesn't always play well with a lot of these. I know it plays well with the TTF files and some OpenType font files, but if you get any other type of files, it might not play so well. So I'll show an example here. So I went ahead and installed one that's like an Elvish font, just to match the theme of Lord of the Rings here. So here we have our like Elvish font, and we can see it entered in here. But a problem with this is obviously this is really big for the space. Now I could go back in and add in a bunch of little different text boxes and then try to align them and size them, but it's kind of a pain and it kind of sucks. I'd rather just be able to enter in my text and hit return, but if I hit that, you can see it doesn't really do kind of what I want it to do. So like if we here, and I'll show you again since I've kind of screwed that one up. So like if we go back in here now and do, so like if I do speak Elvish, so like for friend, so like if I wanted to like return the and, like I'm hitting control return, that's not doing anything. I'm hitting shift return, oh friend. I'm hitting control return, I'm hitting shift return, and it's not really like returning the next line like you would expect in like either a font editor or Word or anything like that. So it's kind of really not that helpful for doing text in here. And then too, like I said, if there are other type of font files that don't play well with 360, you're just going to kind of get like an error when you do it. So this is like so this font here is one I've done for let me edit this again, edit text. So like this one, so like see here, this font type doesn't really match the real font type, so it kind of blows it out, and then I can't use that font. So those are just some of the limitations of trying to use the font in Fusion 360. So I'm going to show you how to do like a workaround for that. So we're going to go ahead and just delete this text box, and we're just going to minimize Fusion 360 for the moment. So I've actually gone ahead, and this is our Elvish font that I've downloaded. You can get fonts from all kinds of places. I usually like to use the ones from Dafont.com. Just check out, make sure that you're like using the appropriate licensing and things like that. So I've downloaded this. This came down as a TTF file and I think like an EOT file. But you'll run into all kinds. Sometimes you'll get ones that are packed into a bunch of different font files and things like that. So I've downloaded it and installed it on my machine. This video tutorial really isn't to teach you how to install fonts. There's plenty of other ways to learn that out there. So we're going to go ahead and just kind of jump into where we can actually use this font. So I use Inkscape and you can use Adobe. I think it's Illustrator is like the paid for version of this. Illustrator's kind of expensive. All the Adobe products are expensive. They're good, but they're just expensive. And so if you're just kind of casually using something for free, or you're a hobbyist, I recommend looking for the GNU version of whatever you're using. So I use Inkscape here. So we're going to go ahead and come in and enter in our text. So we've got our text box here, and so I'll enter in our text. Speak Elvish for friend and enter. So unlike Fusion, where we wanted to return this and enter, we can do it pretty easily here, and then we'll just go ahead and line up our text so it looks kind of cool for so it kind of does what we want it to. And let's just go ahead and increase the size here, the font size. So okay, that looks pretty good. And then we're just going to change our actual font type. So we're going to go in here and change it to Elvish. So okay, that looks pretty good. And I might want to increase the font size a little bit more here. Okay, cool. So that looks good, right? That's our font size, and I'm going to just go ahead and bring this down and center it a little bit. Okay, so now we have our font entered, we have our text entered, and what we want to do is basically find a way to import this into Fusion. So what we're going to do is come up here and go to Object, or Path, sorry, and we'll do Object to Path. And so you can also do this for other SVG files or other type of files where you have kind of these little blockish letters and kind of negative, black and white. And then we're just going to go to File, and then we're going to go to Save As. And so I've already saved it here as an SVG before, just to make sure that everything works smoothly as I work through this. So we're going to come in here and save it as an SVG. And you can do plain SVG if you want. It does work okay with just Inkscape SVG, but I'll save it as a regular SVG file just for the sake of the tutorial. Hit replace. Okay, cool. So now we're going to go back into Fusion 360, and instead of using the text feature for our our font, what we're going to do is we're going to actually just do it as a sketch. So we're going to come in here and we're going to do import, and then we're going to insert our SVG. It's going to bring up our import dialog, and we're going to go find our font. And so when you bring it out, it's going to, I always have issues with it not being right on the plane. It's going to bring it centered to where the origin is. But now you can see here we have our, sorry about that. So now you can see we have our font, and it's cool because instead of before where we had our font as, one big giant block, each one of these is like a path. So I'm going to just space it up here a little bit and bring it over our face that we're working on. And so, okay, it looks good there. And so, I can size it, position it however I want. I'll hit enter. And then bam, we now have, you can see if I'll turn that up. So you can actually see now everything's turned green. So we have our, actual paths on the item. And so if we wanted to do anything like this from here, so if we wanted to add it in as an extrusion, we just come in and we can select those paths, and we can hit Q, and then well, here I'll show you kind of one of the gotchas with this. So if we do that, let's just say I want to bring this out 1/4 of an inch. Bam, we have our extrusion. Now let's say I want to have it like inset, so we'll do that, and now we have our inset. Whenever, there we go. So now this kind of comes in, but you can see here so that it, we kind of lost some of the detail for our, on the interior portions of our, like an O, a D, or a B. I'm not a font person, so I don't really know what those parts are called. So what we can do here is just come in and, select out what we want, and then, we can go back through and just manually remove our portions of the font type, or our portions of the lettering that we don't want to lose that detail on, right? So circles, stuff like that, the interiors of E's, the interiors of A's. I think I got all of it. Yeah, that's good. And so we can just Q. Oh, no, I've negatively selected that, but we can just whap. Okay. And now we've preserved that kind of lettering and set that little offset. I know it's a little hard to see with the size of it, but now it really looks like we want it to for, negative lettering or positive lettering or things like that. So, yeah, that's just that's just really the easiest way to enter in your fonts, especially if you're using custom fonts and things like that. And so, You know, it's a lot easier to manipulate the fonts if you. So if you come in here and you think, okay, like I kind of want to change this up, you'll really have to go back to whatever your original editor is and kind of change it. So you can play around with the sizing. You can play around, you know, with how you want the presentation of it, whether you want to put the return somewhere else or things like that. So, all right. Well, I hope this has been informational, and yeah, happy designing in Fusion 360. And if you have any questions, put them in the comments, and be sure to subscribe for more Fusion 360 tutorials.